No, I mean, I've been in this basement for. Am I still filming these? 2.5, 3 years now. I don't know. Welcome back to GetRubix.com. Steve Weiner here, and today we're going to keep working on our Intune Tenant Device Migration project and get a little bit further. Are there any windows? Okay, everybody. So today we're going to keep working on our script. Pull it up here. I have this set up in a running on a network share. So you can see last time we were working on this. This was our reference machine. Um, Basically, this is a test of a fully managed machine in Tenant A, and we're just kind of running through. We're using PS tools to execute these parts of the script as systems, so we can test as we build. Um, just kind of show you how the process works. Last we left off, we were able to generate some values. You can see we got our autopilot object from tenant A. We got using the serial number of the device. We got the Intune object. We're able to pull the group tag, and we got the active username. That's a good trick too if you're ever trying to get the active user from an app or script in Intune and it's running a system. It's a great way to do it. So let's keep going. There's a few more things we have to get actually that I didn't touch on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to determine what file paths we want to move over from the user profile of tenant A to tenant B. So let's just talk about this real quick. So if you notice here, so if this is the user on the machine. So here, Rick Jones, right? I want to get some stuff, right? Let's assume I'm not using OneDrive, which, as I said in the beginning of the series, we're not gonna use that. I mean, OneDrive is gonna make things easier, but I don't have it turned on. I don't have the known folder moves. So anything in my documents, desktop, was documents, but yeah. Oh, I dump some dummy data in when we actually do that. So we'll get to that later. But the point is, anything here, I'm gonna want to keep. In addition to, very important, probably more important, because if you do have OneDrive, that'll tackle those things. Stuff in app data, especially local and local low. So this is where a lot of app settings are going to come through, and we're going to set this up a little later. So this part we want to be somewhat malleable. So let me go back here to we can actually close that stuff. Let's go back to our script. And we're just going to determine which paths we want to bring over, assuming starting from the user directory. So user paths to be migrated. I'm going to say add or remove as needed. Okay. Add or remove as needed. So to do this, I'm going to make a variable and call it locations. Okay, and this is going to be an array, and I'm basically just going to list out what I want. I definitely want app data. Let's see, app data local. Ooh, nope. And I want app data roaming. I want documents. I want downloads. I want desktop, and I'll even grab pictures. Just thinking of things the end user might, want to keep when the new profile is created. Now here's what's really interesting. So everything we've captured so far, we want to store in a local XML that we can reference later. So you can see I was capturing everything in these variables, so it should be very easy. But one thing we have to do here, so let's build the XML first, and I'll kind of show you how that works. So let's see, XML string will be, okay, so our XML is going to say config. It's still good to write XML like this, where you close off your your brackets. So what do I have in XML so far? I'm going to need the group tag of the device. That's going to be my group tag variable. Let's make sure we're closing them right. I called it group tag. I did. We are going to want the name of the user. So user. That's going to sit in our user variable. We only need the short name. Serial number, in case we need to reference that. Serial number is serial number. Again, this is going to go inside an XML file. And the last thing I need is these locations. So the question is, how do you put these inside of an XML file? Right? So with XML, basically the way it works is locations. I need location tags inside, but I don't have that here. I just have the actual values. So what I have to do is for each location in locations, I have to construct the XML string. So we're going to do that now. I'm basically going to make another array and call it XML locations. And what we're going to basically say is for each for each location in locations above, I want to construct some XML, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I made a mistake first. These should be separate. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so I'm going to make. I'm going to make an empty array, and we're going to call it XML locations, and we're not going to put anything in it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say for each location in locations, right, we're going to add to that variable. So we're going to say XML locations plus equals is to add, and we are going to add a string. So we're going to give it the opening location. We're going to give it the current location we're looping through, so app data local, app data roaming, it'll do all of them. And then we're going to close that location, and we're going to add a tick n for new line so that it will format correctly. So now, and let me show you what that'll actually do here. So let's go back to our reference machine. Well, we can clear this out a little bit. Okay, so if I have, actually here, let's do this. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Locations equals, okay, so if I want to do app data, I'll just do a few here as a test. App data local, documents, downloads, pictures. Right, fair enough. XML locations equals, it's an empty array. Okay. What did I not close here? No, I'll close it. XML locations equals. Oh, no at sign. That means we haven't had enough coffee. That's how you can start telling if you start making a lot of these errors. You gotta check your coffee intake. Okay, so for each location in locations, XML locations plus equals location. I sound like a realtor. Location. Boom. So let's check on a few things first. So we know, let's call some of these. So we know that locations is an array. So locations is going to have everything in it. But now XML locations is going to look like that. Right? which is exactly what we want, right? Because this is essentially going to be um, our inside of the XML. So if I were to take the XML now, let's go back for a second. XML string equals, right? So let's just humor ourselves for a second. Config. If I have some value, so some computer system, some value. Now we're going to go to locations. Locations. I'm going to throw the variable here. Okay. For XML locations, and I can close it up. Locations. And that's going to take everything I have in there and put it in. So let's run this. And let's spit out our XML string and see what it looks like. So look at that now. That's exactly what we want. We want inside of our locations brackets, we have each area we want in a location tag. So that's exactly how we want the XML formatted. And let's go ahead and rope off part 3. So moving to part 4, what are the required policies we need? So we need 2 policies. We have to make sure on the machine being able to sign in and adding a Windows account, a Microsoft account is allowed. It should be. We've run into some instances, possibly on hybrid join machines, where this was a problem. So we just go ahead and set them. We're just using the registry for that. And the other thing is going to be, the other policy we want to set is we want to set at the lock screen. I'll show you real quick. Let's lock the screen. We want to basically make it so once we migrate after the first reboot, we only see the other user option. We don't want to see any previous credentials because we want the user to be forced to sign in with their tenant B credentials. So we're going to have to temporarily set this. We'll put it back later, but the easiest way to do that is with the registry. The other one we're going to do today is going to be the user data migration. So basically what we're going to be doing for user data migration is, I'm going to go back to the reference machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to use pretty much the local machine, and we're going to use temporary location. So the idea is for every file we're going to want to copy in Rick Jones, we're going to end up creating a new place in the public folder, a temporary location to store all that data and keep the structure intact. Post-migration, we're going to bring it over to the new user. We're actually going to label this old Rick Jones during the migration. And when there's a new Rick Jones or a new Rick Jones, whatever, concatenated name, we're going to pull everything over to that. So that means we need enough space on the device to do this twice. So if you're migrating 5 gigs of data, of user data, you need at least 15 free on the machine to do it comfortably. And you can adjust that value. If you want to check for 4 times to make sure you have extra space, we can do that. It's probably not a bad idea. But that's the first thing we have to do. We have to figure out how much disk space we need for what we're migrating, and can we do it or not. So let's start with that. So we already know we need to figure out the total profile size, and that's going to be 0. Just, it's an empty variable. So how do we know how big it is going to be? Well, we already know if we go up in the script which locations we're migrating. That's why we set the locations variable. So we're going to call back to that. So we're going to say for each location in locations. There I go with the realtor talk already. I could probably do that if this doesn't work out. I need the size. I'm going to capture 2 sizes here. And I'm going to basically capture the size of the actual size of bytes, because all we need to do is math. PowerShell just has to figure that out. But I'm also going to I'm also going to make a variable called the size gigabyte that'll make it readable for the logs. And that's the only reason I'm doing that. But it's not a big deal and it's helpful. So the size will actually be get child item, okay, C users. We know we have the user variable, that's the current user. And the next part is going to be the location. So this will be iterative. So this will go through, and this will basically say, hey, for every location here, app data, documents, this, it'll grab the full path. Okay. Let's do recurse so it gets the child items. And we are going to measure the object length sum. And we're going to pull out just the sum of that. Okay. So let's see what that does. Let's see what that gives us. If we flip over here, back to our, let's make another new area. In fact, we can use this since we already have locations. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. It's good to have a little scratch pad here just to work stuff up on. Okay, so I have my pictures, downloads, documents, app data local. So why don't we do that? Total profile size equals 0. Oh, not 9. Coffee. For each location in locations, we're going to get the size. Size equals get child item, C users. I'm going to use a static location here because I didn't run the variable. But we can add location because that's fine. Recurse. Gotta spell that correctly. Measure object length sum. Okay. Okay. So you see I'm getting output from these. I'm getting how big each one is, basically. You know, as far as app data, I don't believe there's that much in app data local. That's probably why it's not coming back with anything. So I'm getting those sizes there. So that's the first thing I'm doing. The problem is, well, there's two problems. I want to add that to the total profile size. And what I also want to do is I want to write it out in terms of gigabytes. So total profile size plus equals is to add. I'm just going to add the size number since they're both numbers. Okay. But I also need to get the size in gigabytes. So in order to do that, I need to basically tell PowerShell I want to use a number with 2 characters in the gigabyte format. We're going to force that, and we're going to pass that size 1 gigabyte. So that'll translate every size to gigabyte, and that's simply there to write the host out. Write hosts, C users, Rick Jones, location, size is size gigabytes. Let's run it now. Okay, so you can see it told me what's going on here. Rick Jones document size is 0, download size is 0, picture size is 0. Now the problem at 0 is because it's rounding down, right? So if I were to change that to size, it's going to go ahead and, yeah, you can see it's going to go ahead and give me, oh, well, I spelled pictures wrong. That's why. Can't do that. Who caught that there? It's pretty good. There we go. Okay. So that's what it's doing, right? If it's not enough to equal a point, gigabytes. So here, if we bring this back to gigabytes, yeah. So it's just not enough in the way we're rounding. But I only threw a few things in there. So the bottom line here is this is how we're going to capture it both for the, and now here, let's call total profile size. There you go. That's bytes. But it would probably be good if we could spit that out in gigabytes as well, as opposed to just a number. So let's do total profile size gigabyte equals, we're going to do the same thing. So we got these brackets, 0, n2. We're going to do gigabyte force, and we're going to just pass in our total profile size variable, and that should be good. And then we can write that out. Write host. We can say the size of user profile is, okay, so let's rerun that. So take a look here. It's going to tell us the size of the user profile is 0.97 gigs altogether. So we know that, right? So in order to have enough free space, because we're going to, let's say we had a gig. We need to copy it over to a temp location. That's 2 gigs. And then we got to bring it over for the final migration before deleting it. That's 3 gigs. So what we really need is 3 times the size. So we gotta figure that out. So let's go ahead and throw that back into our, you know what, there's no reason to do double the work here. Why don't we just switch Rick Jones with user, size of, the total size of user profile. Great. I was making some adjustments so we can just reuse this. Okay, now it should be abstracted. Let's open that back up. Oop, go away. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So okay. Perfect. It's part of our main script. We don't have to touch anything. Excellent. That's why we're sharing this script here, this location. Let's open that back up. Great. Okay. So we have the total size of the user profile. We understand that. That's great. So how do we know if there's enough free disk space? We need to know the disk size we're working with here. So the disk size of the PC is get volume, drive letter, C, select object, size remaining. These are just standard properties from that command. Expand property, size remaining. Okay, we're going to convert that to bytes, this size gigabytes, just like before. Okay, gigabytes. And we're going to pass in the disk size. That's a pretty easy way to do this. And that'll give us our disk size in gigabytes, write host. Well, it's giving us the remaining space. There is disk size gigabytes of free space available on the PC. So now that we have that number, we just need to know how much is needed. So the needed space is going to be 3 times the total profile size space, or 4 times, whatever you want. So let's say needed space equals total profile size times 3. And we can convert that to gigabytes, again, for the log. Needed space, gigabytes equals 2 gigabytes needed space 1 gigabyte. There we go. So we can say write host needed space gigabyte is required to transfer local user data. Let's use migrate instead of transfer. There we go. Great. So now what does that look like on the other side? Let's open that back up. Please leave me alone. Okay, so can we run this? We absolutely can run this. All right, let's take a look. The size of Rick Jones' profile is 0.97 gigs. There's 31 gigs of free space available on the PC. Did it calculate needed space? Oh, I didn't run that, so let's do that. 2.92 gigs is required to migrate the local user data. Well, I have 31 gigs, so we're all set. That means I basically have to check that. So execute the migration, and this part's really simple. All we're doing here is we're doing a simple check if the disk size is greater than the needed space. So if disk size is greater than the needed space, we're going to write host disk size gigabyte, because this is for the log, of free space is sufficient to transfer total profile size gigabytes of local user data. Begin migration. Beautiful. And then we can just literally go through. So what we're going to do is we are going to, again, for each location in location. Now we're going to construct some paths here. So what we're going to do is we want our user path, and this is the current user path. So that's C users, user, and the iterative location. Okay, that's everything we loop through. The second one is the temp path. So the temp path is going to be C users public. I'm making a temp directory, and I will store that location. So everything in there will have the same piece, right? It'll just be in that temp path. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll say if the test path of the temp path does not exist, we make it. Make directory temp path. And we know it's going to have to make it. And then we write host initiating backup of, and we can just write user path here. And all we're going to do here is a simple robocopy. And we're going to do robocopy because especially the logging's better, and in the app data, there's a lot of virtual junction directories we want to be able to skip. So user path, temp path, and we're going to use these switches. CB, I don't remember what they all mean. I wrote them down, so they must be important. I know XJ skips the junctions, and that's really important. Junctions kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy VIII. For those of you who know, then you know. New item. Oh, yeah, we're going to add... Okay, let me write this and I'll tell you. Local path, name. Oh, migrate. Okay, so because this is an if statement, there's ultimately going to be two options here, right? So there's going to be, if we had enough space, we migrate everything over. At the end of migrating, I want to set a flag so I know the migration worked. In this case, I'm just going to make a text file called data migration passed. I don't have to put anything in it. Because else, and this is, because this is newer, every organization is doing something different. You could stop the process here and send some kind of flag. In a lot of cases, we are just writing that the data can't be migrated. So we can say disk size is not enough free space to copy total profile size of user data. Consider backing up user data to external storage. And I'm just going to leave it there for now because it's one option. Obviously, you can migrate or not migrate there. Now that the user data is done, we have to finish the rest of removing the old enrollment pieces from Tenant A, get the provisioning package running, and then actually migrate the device. It's kind of the whole point.